So, it turns out the internet wasn't just being messy this time. Huda from Love Island USA Season 7, yes, that Huda, is back in headlines after some pretty wild stripper allegations actually turned out to be true. And before you roll your eyes like, well, duh, just wait. Because what came out next sent Reddit, Twitter, and the entire Love Island fandom into a full-on meltdown. Someone posted a clip, allegedly of Huda, dancing in a real club, surrounded by other performers. And the person who leaked it claimed they worked with her for years. They weren't even hating. They said she was cool, but misunderstood, which made the fandom go from dragging to detective mode real quick. And somehow, all of this chaos ended up bringing back the conversation around Ace, Nicolandria, Nic, Olandria, Taylor, and literally everyone from Love Island USA's most dramatic season. Because when Huda's past got exposed, fans started asking who's actually being real out here and who's just playing the game. This right here is where the lines between reality TV and real life completely blurred. Before we dive into this chaos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's free, it keeps my serotonin levels stable, and honestly, it might be the only thing less toxic than Love Island Twitter.
So here's where everything started spiraling. One random night, a Reddit user drops a video in a Love Island thread, claiming it's Huda from years before the show, performing at a local club. No filters, no ring lights, no peacock cameras, just raw footage. Within minutes, the post explodes. Fans who once defended her are suddenly rethinking everything they saw in the villa. People are zooming in, matching tattoos, comparing hairstyles, analyzing the lighting like it's a full-scale FBI operation. The Love Island fandom doesn't sleep, and if they smell even a whiff of drama, they're on it faster than Nic running to comfort Olandria after a challenge. But here's the twist. The person who posted the clip wasn't trying to expose her maliciously. They actually said, yeah, that's Huda. We used to dance together for years. She's cool. She just has strong energy that not everyone vibes with. So this wasn't a hate drop. It was more like someone casually confirming what Reddit had already been whispering for weeks. Still, the internet doesn't do casual. Once the clip hit TikTok, the fandom split right down the middle. Some said, it's her life, who cares? Others said, she lied on the Cali podcast about where she learned to chance. That's fake behavior.
And that's where it got messy. Not because of what she did, but because of what she said. On the podcast, when asked where she picked up those now famous Vela dance moves, she laughed and said she learned them from her friends. Technically, not a lie. But the internet loves technicalities. Because if your friends are your old coworkers at a club, that's still kinda true, right? The problem wasn't her past, it was the mismatch between her story and the footage. Fans didn't know whether to defend her or drag her, and in that confusion, Huda became the new mirror for everyone watching Love Island. What's real and what's just part of the show. Meanwhile, in the background of all this, another storyline quietly started resurfacing, one that would soon steal the spotlight again. Because while everyone was dissecting Huda's Reddit scandal, Nic and Olandria, aka Nicolandria, were out here redefining what real connection actually looks like. But to understand why Nicolandria's rise suddenly felt even more powerful after Huda's fallout, we have to rewind to where their story really began. While Huda's name was trending for all the wrong reasons, Nic and Olandria, better known online as Nicolandria, were trending for the complete opposite. The internet loves a scandal, but it also loves a love story that feels real. And somehow, in the middle of chaos, Nicolandria became the fandom's emotional reset button. Think about it. While one part of the Love Island universe was getting messy on Reddit threads, the other part was out here posting soft, genuine moments. No forced PDA, no scripted energy, just the kind of chemistry that doesn't need defending. Every time Nick looked at Olandria, you could see it, that "I actually know this person" kind of energy. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. Huda was under fire for hiding her truth, while Nicolandria was quietly winning hearts by living theirs. What made it even more powerful was how they never tried to over-explain themselves. When the show ended and people were desperate for post-villa interviews or couple Q&As, Nicolandria played it smart. They stayed low-key, selective, private. They didn't rush to prove anything, and ironically, that made everyone believe in them more.
Fans started saying it out loud. See, this is why Nicolandria works. They're not out here chasing attention. They just exist, and it feels natural. And that's when the fandom started realizing something bigger. Privacy isn't secrecy. Nicolandria didn't need to tell us everything because their connection already showed everything. But here's where it gets even deeper. When you compare how they handled fame with how most couples from Love Island USA Season 7 handled it, the difference is wild. Some went full influencer mode, brand deals, drama posts, staged appearances. Nicolandria, they gave us silence, slow growth, and consistency. They built curiosity instead of content, mystery instead of mess. And that's exactly why they survived when others didn't. Because in a world that rewards oversharing, Nic and Olandria somehow made privacy the most attractive thing about them. And when you look at how their story unfolded, from friendship to frustration to finally finding each other, you realize it all came down to one thing: timing.
See, everyone thinks Nicolandria's magic was the chemistry or the looks. But the truth is, the reason they work is because it didn't happen too soon. And once you understand the timing behind their connection, you'll see why their story became the blueprint for every slow-burn romance after them. When people talk about Love Island USA Season 7, there's one big question that always comes up. What if Nic and Olandria had coupled up earlier? What if she had chosen him instead of Taylor? What if Sierra never entered the villa? What if they hadn't spent half the season pretending not to care about each other? Fans love their what-ifs, but the truth is, if Nicolandria had happened sooner, it probably wouldn't have worked. Because here's the thing, timing is everything. When Nic and Olandria first met, they were two people in completely different headspaces. Nic came in with what he once called 6 shirts and a dream. He wasn't chasing deep connection, he was chasing the experience. A summer in Fiji, a few laughs, and maybe a couple of flirty moments along the way. He was spontaneous, playful, not thinking about love at all.
Olandria, though, she was on a whole other wavelength. She'd manifested this idea of finding someone who saw her soul before her looks. She wanted safety, consistency, something that lasted longer than a challenge or a kiss. She talked about wanting friendship first, real energy, trust. And once she paired with Taylor, who promised her a slow burn and reassurance, it made perfect sense on paper. But while all that was happening, Nic was watching, quietly, respectfully. And that's what changed everything. He wasn't chasing her, he was studying her. Not in a creepy way, but in that observant, I actually want to understand this person kind of way. Viewers saw it in small moments. The way he'd look at her across the villa, help her up the stairs, laugh during those casual late-night talks. It wasn't flirty energy. It was groundwork.
And Olandria didn't even realize it, but she was getting exactly what she had prayed for, a connection that was growing instead of rushing. Nic was building respect first, friendship first, trust first. And by the time the season reached its final stretch, something just clicked. When Nic and Sierra drifted apart and Olandria started questioning everything with Taylor, the universe, or maybe just the producers, finally cleared the stage. And suddenly, that slow burn everyone joked about ignited. Their connection wasn't new. It had been simmering for weeks.
They'd had their banter, their inside jokes, those subtle smiles that everyone caught in background shots. The kind of moments that don't trend, but mean everything. So when they finally coupled up in the last week, it wasn't random. It was a payoff. Every glance, every almost moment, every time Nic supported her when she felt unseen, it all led to that point.
And when Olandria finally let her guard down, you could literally see the shift, the calmness, the comfort. It wasn't the chaos of new attraction, it was the peace of recognition. Like two people finally realizing, oh, it's been you this whole time. That's why Nicolandria works. Not because of grand gestures, not because of perfect timing, but because it took imperfect timing to get them to the right moment. They weren't forced together by the show's pacing, they found each other despite it. If you're still watching and haven't subscribed yet, come on, Nic had better commitment timing than you do. Hit that button before Olandria decides she's taking a break from us too. Because what happened after that wasn't just a couple finding love, it was two people stepping into their character arcs. Let's talk about how both Nic and Olandria changed in ways nobody expected. One thing that separates Nicolandria from every other Love Island couple isn't just chemistry, it's growth. Real, visible character development. Because when you look back at who Nic and Olandria were on day one versus who they became by the finale, it's like watching two completely different people finally meet in the middle.
Let's start with Nic. When he first walked into the villa, his whole vibe screamed, here for a good time, not a long time. The guy literally said Love Island was his side quest. He had no plan, no expectations, just 6 shirts, good energy, and an open schedule. But something shifted the moment he started orbiting around Olandria. She wasn't another flirtation, she was a challenge, the kind that forces you to level up. You could actually see the evolution happening in real time. The goofy humor was still there, but there was more focus, more intentionality. He started paying attention, listening, learning what made her feel safe. He began showing leadership in subtle ways, being patient, showing up consistently, reading her cues. By the time they officially coupled up, he wasn't the same guy who walked in for a fun summer. He was the guy ready to build something.
And then there's Olandria. She came in strong, confident, funny, but guarded. Her biggest challenge wasn't finding attraction, it was finding safety. She wanted someone she could trust enough to finally rest, not perform. And for most of the season, she was holding that armor tight. But slowly, through all those small moments, the laughter, the eye contact, the comfort of Nic's calm, you could see her start to breathe differently. That's what made her journey special. She didn't fall for the idea of Nic, she fell for the version of herself she could be around him. Relaxed, real, soft, without being small. Together, they evolved. Nic learned stability, Olandria learned surrender. And somehow, their growth aligned at the exact right moment, right before the season ended, right before they became Nicolandria.
It's wild because Love Island isn't designed for slow burns. The whole format pushes speed. Couple fast, flirt faster, kiss first, explain later. But Nic and Olandria quietly broke that system. They didn't chase the edit. They let time do the work. And when the dust settled, their bond wasn't about the cameras. It was about clarity. That's why, post-show, they didn't crumble like most couples do when the lights turn off. They'd already built the foundation. Respect first, attraction second. And when you build it in that order, it lasts longer than a season. But here's the twist. While Nic and Olandria were growing into the strongest couple on the show, the rest of the villa was quietly falling apart. Because the energy around Ace, Taylor, and Sierra created the perfect storm, and somehow every one of their storylines made Nicolandria shine even brighter. Here's the thing about Love Island. No couple exists in isolation. Every connection, every flirtation, every decision sends ripples through the villa. And Ace, Taylor, and Sierra were the ripples that ended up making Nicolandria look even stronger.
Let's start with Ace. When everyone else was chasing screen time, Ace was chasing calm. His steady energy made him the villa's unofficial therapist. But when it came to romance, he was all about loyalty. Even when drama exploded around him, he stood by Chelly, defending her when the fandom started to pick sides. And that quiet, consistent presence, it made Nick's loyalty to Olandria shine even brighter by comparison. Because when chaos surrounded them, Nic and Olandria became the balance point. The couple you looked at and thought, okay, maybe love isn't completely doomed in this villa. Then there's Taylor. On paper, Taylor seemed perfect for Olandria. Chill vibe, nice words, a so-called slow burn. But as the season went on, it became clear he was all talk and no emotional follow-through. There's this moment everyone remembers, Olandria literally in tears, telling him she didn't feel secure or reassured, and he just froze. No emotion, no comfort, just silence. That moment said it all, and it became a turning point, not just for her, but for viewers too. Because once you've seen a woman begging to be understood, and then you see her find someone who just gets it without her asking, you root for that connection with your whole chest.
Taylor's lack of energy made Nick's quiet effort stand out like neon. And Sierra, she's the third domino in this story. Sierra came in with confidence, fire, and a strategy that made sense for the game. She matched Nick's early flirt energy perfectly, the banter, the teasing, the physical spark. But when that surface-level attraction started fading, what was left wasn't partnership, it was tension. And that's when everyone realized Nick wasn't just some carefree player. He wanted depth. He wanted someone who met him mentally, not just physically. Sierra's exit created space, literally and emotionally, for Nick to finally pursue what he'd been holding back the entire season. And that's when it happened. The long-awaited Nicolandria connection finally came to life. So yeah, Ace brought calm, Taylor brought disconnection, Sierra brought chaos. And all of that, whether they knew it or not, built the perfect stage for Nicolandria to rise. Because when you strip away all the distractions, you realize that love stories aren't just about chemistry. They're about contrast. And Nic and Olandria stood out because they didn't blend in with the noise. They rose above it.
And once the villa doors closed, that contrast became even clearer. Because while everyone else was chasing influencer deals and clout, Nicolandria started chasing something completely different. A real connection outside the show. And what they built after the cameras stopped rolling might be the most surprising part of their entire story. When the final episode aired and the Love Island USA villa doors slammed shut, most couples did what they always do, fade into Instagram sponsorships and awkward silences. But Nic and Olandria, they broke that pattern completely. They didn't just survive post-villa life, they thrived in it. You could feel the difference right away. While some islanders were out here dropping soft launch breakups or pretending everything was fine for the algorithm, Nicolandria just existed. No drama, no clickbait, no overexposed couple vlogs. Instead, they built momentum by doing the most un-Love Island thing imaginable, keeping things private.
And that privacy turned into power. Their first major public appearance together, the Fortune and Forks event, practically broke the fandom. The photos said everything. Nic looking at Olandria like she's the only person in the room. Olandria glowing like she already knew she'd won the real prize of the season. No PDA stunts, no rehearsed red carpet energy, just two people vibing naturally. Then came the slow drip of moments fans couldn't stop analyzing. Nic showing up to support her brand collab. Olandria sharing little behind-the-scenes snippets. A hand, a laugh, a voice in the background. It was subtle, but that's what made it addictive. Every tiny moment felt earned, not performed. Even their interviews hit differently. When asked about each other, they didn't use the usual reality show cliches like, "We're just seeing where it goes." Instead, they talked about growth, respect, and space. It was like they understood what most couples missed. Fame fades, but foundation doesn't.
Fans noticed too. The same comment kept popping up under every post. They're the only couple that feels real. And honestly, they were right. Because when you think about it, the villa gave them chemistry, but real life gave them character. And every time another Love Island couple broke up or unfollowed each other, Nicolandria got stronger by contrast. Not because they were perfect, but because they never tried to look perfect. They were still goofy, still private, still refusing to over-explain themselves to the internet. That's why they became more than a TV couple. They became a case study. A reminder that reality TV doesn't have to end in heartbreak if you build it right. If you've made it this far and you're still not subscribed, honestly, that's more commitment issues than Taylor in week 3. Hit that subscribe button before Nick starts giving you the silent treatment. Because even with all that proof, there's still one question that refuses to die. Are Nic and Olandria the real deal? Or are we all just watching the best PR rollout in Love Island history? Let's talk about that.
All right, let's address the question that just won't die. Is Nicolandria real, or are they secretly pulling off the best PR stunt in Love Island history? It's wild how fast people went from "they're perfect together" to "nah, this looks too good to be true." Because apparently, in 2025, if you're stable and not screaming on TikTok Live every week, you must be faking it. But here's the thing, the receipts say otherwise. Let's start with the basics. Every so-called PR couple from the show has the same pattern: heavy content, fake tension, breakup rumors, then a "we're focusing on our own journeys" statement. It's predictable. Nicolandria never played that game. They don't overshare, but they don't hide either. You'll catch them quietly supporting each other, Nic hyping Olandria's career moves, Olandria reposting his wins without turning it into a performance. It's low-key, consistent, and human. Because real relationships aren't about constant visibility. They're about continuity.
And if you look close enough, the authenticity is all over their smallest moments. Like when Nic called her out, playfully, during an interview for interrupting him, and she just smiled instead of getting defensive. Or when Olandria casually mentioned that Nic knows how to make her laugh when she's spiraling, and the camera caught that look, the "yep, this is real life" look. It's not cinematic, it's not choreographed, it's just normal. And ironically, normal is what's become the rarest thing on reality TV. But let's go deeper. If this was a PR setup, they'd be milking it. Every brand deal would be couple goals. Every event would be staged. Every caption would be hashtagged like a marketing deck. Instead, they're turning down chaos for longevity. And that's what makes it believable. You can tell when two people are in the same room, but living in different worlds. Nic and Olandria? They're in the same frame and the same frequency. Their humor matches, their calm matches, even their silence matches. That's not PR. That's partnership. And honestly, that's what confuses the internet the most. Because people don't know how to process healthy love when all they've seen are headlines, heartbreaks, and hot takes. When you give them something peaceful, they assume it's fake. But maybe the biggest proof that Nicolandria is real is that they don't need to prove it. No explanations, no clapbacks, no drama threads. Just two people moving at their own pace and letting time do the talking. So yeah, you can call it PR, manifestation, or divine timing, but the truth is simple. In a world built on noise,
Nicolandria's silence became their loudest statement. And that brings us to the final part of this story, the full circle moment that ties everything together. Huda's exposure, Nicolandria's rise, and what it all really says about authenticity in the age of reality TV.
At the start of this story, it was chaos. Huda trending for the wrong reasons, Reddit detectives piecing together old footage, and fans debating what's real versus what's just good editing. But by the end of it, something deeper came out of the noise. Because this whole Love Island saga, from Huda's exposure to Nicolandria's rise, isn't just about relationships. It's about authenticity, about what happens when reality TV stops being entertainment and starts reflecting who we really are, underneath the filters and the followers. Huda's story became a cautionary tale about control, how the internet can take a private truth and turn it into public chaos. But Nicolandria's story, that became the antidote. Proof that when you move with patience, honesty, and quiet confidence, you don't need to explain yourself to anyone. They showed everyone that the best kind of connection isn't built on performance. It's built on peace. That you don't have to overshare to be believed or oversell to be loved. And in a world that rewards drama, they chose stillness. And somehow, that's what made them unforgettable.
The same week fans were canceling Huda, they were celebrating Nic and Olandria. Two sides of the same reality show. One falling apart under pressure, the other building something unshakable from it. So yeah, maybe timing was divine. Maybe everything that happened in that villa, every wrong match, every fight, every near miss was leading to this exact moment. Because if Huda's story was about losing control of the narrative, Olandria's was about taking it back. And that's the real full circle. Authenticity outlasting controversy. Because when the cameras fade and the comments stop, the truth is simple. The real ones always last longer than the storyline. If you made it this far, congratulations! You officially have more emotional stamina than anyone from Love Island USA. Hit that subscribe button before Olandria books a TED Talk about how to stay unbothered while the internet loses its mind. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.